The building was quiet, the kind of silence that made every footstep echo against the marble floors. The fluorescent lights hummed softly above, casting long shadows down the empty corridors of Grant & Company's headquarters. Most employees had left hours ago, their offices locked, their desks neat. Only the faint scent of coffee and the distant sound of the air conditioning hinted that life had once bustled here during the day. But one man still walked the halls, Evan, the new night shift temp. In truth, his real name was Marcus Grant, CEO of the company. Tonight, just like every night for the past 2 weeks, he was dressed in plain khakis, a faded polo shirt, and sneakers that had seen better days. The disguise was simple, but effective. No one looked twice at the quiet, temp worker mopping floors or restocking supplies. That was exactly how Marcus wanted it. He wasn't there to check the numbers or close deals. He was there to see the heart of his company. The unseen workers, the ones who kept the place running when no one was watching. That was when he heard it. A faint rustling. It came from the end of the west wing hallway, near the supply closet. Marcus paused. It was nearly 1 a.m., and the cleaners had already clocked out, or so he thought. He walked quietly toward the sound, his footsteps muffled on the carpet. The rustling stopped for a moment, replaced by the soft sound of breathing. Slowly, Marcus turned the handle and pushed the closet door open. What he saw stopped him cold. There, on the floor between mops and buckets, an older man lay curled up under a thin, faded blanket. His gray hair was messy, his face weathered, but peaceful in sleep. A pair of worn work boots sat neatly beside him. The closet smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and the mustiness of old cardboard boxes. The dim light from the hallway fell across the man's face, revealing deep lines, not just of age, but of years of exhaustion. Marcus instinctively stepped back, unsure whether to wake him or leave him be. The building had strict rules about sleeping on company property, but something told him this wasn't the result of laziness. The man's hands, visible outside the blanket, were calloused and rough, as if they'd spent decades working without rest. He stood there for a full minute, watching the man breathe, wondering what chain of events had led to this moment, an employee sleeping on the cold floor of a supply closet. 1,000 questions swirled in Marcus's mind, but one thing was certain. This wasn't something he could just ignore. He quietly pulled the door shut, leaving it slightly ajar so the man wouldn't feel trapped if he woke. Then he turned away, his footsteps heavier than before. Tomorrow, he decided, he would find out exactly who this man was, and why he had nowhere else to go. Morning sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows of Grant & Company, painting streaks of gold across the polished floors. The hum of printers and distant chatter began to fill the air as the office woke to another workday. Marcus, still in his plain, temp worker, clothes, arrived early. He had one goal: find the man from the supply closet. Sure enough, in the janitorial storage room, the older man was already up, dressed in a faded blue uniform with the company logo stitched on the chest. His name tag, barely hanging by a bent pin, read Lewis in chipped black letters. He was meticulously organizing bottles of cleaner on a shelf, humming quietly to himself. Marcus stepped in casually, pushing a cart of supplies to keep up the act. "Morning," Marcus said with a friendly nod. Lewis looked up, surprised. "Oh, you must be the new temp. Evan, right?" His voice was gravelly, the kind that carried decades of early mornings and late nights. "Yeah. That's me," Marcus replied, leaning casually against the doorway. "Didn't think anyone else came in this early." Lewis chuckled softly. "Well, floors don't clean themselves. I like to get a head start before the rush." He spoke with the kind of humility that didn't come from trying to impress anyone, just the simple pride of doing a job well. Marcus decided to nudge the conversation closer to what he'd seen last night. "Long night?" he asked, keeping his tone light. Lewis paused for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Marcus to notice, before continuing to arrange the shelves. "Yeah, you could say that. Been here a while, so I'm used to it. They worked side by side for a few minutes, restocking paper towels and replacing trash liners. Eventually, Marcus asked, "So, how long have you been with the company?" Louis's face softened. 25 years this month. Started back when the building was half this size. Back then, I knew everyone's name, and they knew mine. These days, he shrugged. People come and go. I just keep the place tidy. Marcus nodded, masking his growing respect. And you live nearby? Louis hesitated again. This time, he didn't look up. Used to. My wife and I had an apartment just a few blocks away. She passed away last winter. Things got tight. His voice lowered, almost as if speaking the words out loud made them heavier. I lost the apartment a few months later. Rent's not forgiving in this city. Marcus felt a pang in his chest. So where do you? He stopped himself, not wanting to push too hard. Louis smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. Let's just say I've found a way to keep close to work. Saves on bus fare. Marcus didn't need more explanation, he already knew. The supply closet. But he said nothing. Not yet. Instead, he handed Louis a fresh pack of gloves and said, "Well, I'm glad we're working together. I could learn a lot from you." Louis chuckled, shaking his head. You're young, Evan. Trust me. The only thing to learn from me is how to keep going when no one notices. Marcus stored that sentence away in his mind. He was starting to realize that Louis's story might be more than just an employee's struggle, it might be a mirror reflecting the gaps in the company he himself had built. The rest of that week, Marcus made it his mission to shadow Louis without making it obvious. He wanted to understand the man's world, the hours he worked, the burdens he carried, and the way the company treated him. He learned quickly that Louis was more than just the janitor. He was the quiet backbone of the building. On Monday night, Marcus noticed that when one of the newer cleaning staff called in sick, Louis didn't complain. Instead, he silently picked up the extra floor, scrubbing the restrooms and polishing the lobby marble long after his shift was supposed to end. On Tuesday, it rained hard, the kind of downpour that left the city streets slick and treacherous. Most employees rushed out early to avoid the traffic. Louis stayed, mopping the water that people tracked in, so no one would slip. Marcus saw him wring out the same mop over and over until his hands were red from the cold water. When Marcus offered to help, Louis just smiled and said, "Someone's gotta keep it safe." On Wednesday, Marcus watched him pause in the middle of cleaning to help a young receptionist who had dropped a box of client folders. He didn't just pick them up, he carefully reorganized them in the correct order, saving her hours of work. She thanked him quickly but was already on her phone before he'd even finished standing up. By Thursday, Marcus noticed something else. Louis's uniform was frayed at the sleeves, the stitching coming loose. His shoes had deep creases and the soles were worn thin, with bits of black tape keeping them together. Marcus thought about how many hours those shoes had walked across these floors while the company's executives sat in leather chairs upstairs. That evening, Marcus brought 2 cups of coffee to the loading dock, where Louis was taking out the last bags of trash. The rain had stopped, but the air was damp and cold. "Thanks," Louis said, taking the cup and wrapping his hands around it for warmth. They sat on an overturned bucket, steam rising from their drinks. "You've been here longer than most of the executives, haven't you?" Marcus asked. Louis chuckled. "Maybe. I remember when Mr. Grant, the founder, used to walk the floors every week, shake hands with everyone. He knew the name of every janitor, every receptionist. These days, things are different." He didn't say it with bitterness, just quiet acceptance. Marcus studied him. "Do you ever take time off?" Louis shook his head. "Not really. If I'm not here, things pile up. And I can't afford unpaid days. I like to keep busy anyway. Helps keep the loneliness away." There it was again, that quiet truth, slipped between sentences. Marcus thought about the supply closet, about the blanket folded neatly at the corner. He wanted to ask directly, but he also didn't want to strip away Louis's dignity by confronting him too soon. Instead, Marcus said, "You know, most people wouldn't go the extra mile the way you do." Louis smiled faintly. "Most people don't think they're replaceable. But me? I've seen too many faces come and go. I figure the best I can do is make myself useful until I can't anymore." Marcus sipped his coffee in silence, his mind already forming a plan. Louis had given a lifetime to this company, and in return, it had given him a closet floor to sleep on. That wasn't loyalty, that was neglect. Something had to change. Friday came with a sharp winter wind that rattled the glass doors of Grant & Company. The building was buzzing with end-of-week energy, employees eager to finish up and head home. Marcus had decided, today was the day. For 2 weeks, he had walked these halls in worn sneakers, sweeping floors and hauling trash alongside Louis. He had seen enough. He'd seen a man give more than 25 years to a company and receive little more than a name stitched on a fading uniform. He'd seen loyalty go unnoticed, dedication overlooked. That was about to change. At 3 p.m., Marcus asked Louis to meet him in Conference Room C for a quick maintenance review. Louis didn't suspect a thing. He arrived with his cart, stocked neatly with paper towels, a broom, and bottles of glass cleaner, ready to take notes on whatever issue the temp had found. But when he stepped into the room, his cart wheels squeaking on the polished floor, he froze. Sitting at the long table were 3 of the company's top executives, dressed in sharp suits. The mood was formal, almost tense. And at the head of the table stood Marcus, no longer in khakis and a polo, but in a tailored navy suit, polished shoes, and a silver tie pin shaped like the company's logo. Louis blinked in confusion. "Evan. What's going on here?" Marcus took a step forward, his voice calm but steady. "My name isn't Evan. My name is Marcus Grant. I'm the CEO of this company." The word seemed to hang in the air, heavy and unbelievable. Louis's eyes widened. His hand tightened on the cart handle. You're Mr. Grant." His voice cracked, almost as if saying it out loud made it real. Marcus nodded. "Yes. And for the past 2 weeks, I've been here undercover, working alongside you, seeing the company through your eyes." Louis opened his mouth, but no words came out. His eyes darted to the executives, then back to Marcus. I didn't mean to cause any trouble," he stammered. "If this is about me staying late sometimes, or about where I..." Marcus held up a hand. "This isn't about punishing you, Louis. It's about acknowledging you." The room went still. "I saw you," Marcus continued, his voice firm. "I saw you take extra shifts without asking for overtime. I saw you help employees without expecting thanks. I saw the way you keep this building spotless even when no one notices." Louis looked down at the floor, his throat working to hold back emotion. "I also saw where you've been sleeping," Marcus said gently. "In a supply closet. On the floor. After 25 years of service." Louis's head lowered further, shame flickering across his face. "I didn't want to bother anyone," he murmured. I thought if HR found out, they'd let me go. This job's all I've got left." Marcus took another step closer. "Louis, you should never have to hide to keep your job. And you certainly should never have to sleep on a closet floor just to keep working." He turned to the executives. "Effective immediately, Louis will receive a full pay raise, back pay for every unpaid overtime hour he's ever worked, and a permanent housing allowance. And next month, we'll honor him at the company-wide meeting for his decades of service." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Louis stood frozen, gripping the cart as if it were the only thing anchoring him. Finally, he spoke, his voice trembling. "Mr. Grant. I don't know what to say. Marcus smiled faintly. Just say you'll accept it. You've earned every bit of it, and more. Louis swallowed hard, nodding slowly. Thank you. For seeing me. And in that moment, Marcus knew that while profits might keep a company alive, it was moments like this that gave it a soul. 2 weeks later, the morning light streaming through the glass facade of Grant & Company seemed somehow warmer. The lobby, usually a rush of briefcases and coffee cups, had a different kind of energy, one of quiet anticipation. At precisely 8:15 a.m., the glass doors slid open and Louis walked in. Not in his old frayed uniform, but in a crisp new one, deep navy with his name embroidered in gold thread. His shoes were polished, his shoulders straight. In his hands, he carried a simple leather satchel, a gift from Marcus. It wasn't just the uniform that had changed. Louis now had an apartment only 3 blocks away, furnished with essentials the company had helped provide. For the first time in years, he had a warm bed, a stocked fridge, and a front door that locked behind him. As he made his way through the lobby, a few employees, people who used to pass him without a glance, stopped to greet him. Morning, Louis. Good to see you. Some even shook his hand. It was the first ripple of change. That day, the company was holding its quarterly all-staff meeting. Usually, these gatherings were reserved for performance charts, future goals, and new client announcements. But Marcus had something else in mind. The auditorium filled with employees from every department, from marketing to maintenance. The chatter died down when Marcus stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. Good morning, he began, scanning the crowd. Today's meeting is different. We're not here to talk about profit margins or market trends. We're here to talk about the people who make this company what it is. He paused, letting the silence settle. 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege of meeting someone who reminded me what real dedication looks like. He's been with us for 25 years, often working extra hours without asking for recognition, without expecting anything in return. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Marcus continued, but I also discovered that while this man gave everything to our company, we, as a company, hadn't given him the dignity and care he deserved. That's not loyalty. That's not how we treat family. He looked toward the side of the stage. Louis, would you join me up here? There was a brief moment of hesitation before Louis stood from his seat, the spotlight following him as he walked to the stage. Applause began, soft at first, then growing louder until the entire room was on its feet. Louis reached the podium, looking slightly overwhelmed. Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. This, Marcus said, turning to the crowd, is Louis. The backbone of this building. And from this day forward, he's not just our janitor, he's our employee dignity ambassador. He'll help ensure no one in this company ever goes unnoticed or unsupported again. The applause thundered again, but Louis raised his hand slightly, signaling he wanted to speak. His voice was steady, though there was emotion in it. I've cleaned these floors for a long time, he began. I've seen faces come and go. Some noticed me, most didn't. That was okay, I wasn't here for the attention. I just wanted to do my job and do it well. But when life got hard, I thought I had to hide my struggles. I thought no one would care. He paused, his voice thickening. Mr. Grant proved me wrong. He saw me. And because he saw me, I stand here today not as someone surviving, but as someone living again. Thank you, not just to him, but to everyone who's decided to look a little closer at the people around them. The standing ovation lasted longer this time. Some employees even wiped away tears. In the weeks that followed, the employee dignity policy Marcus implemented took effect. It included housing assistance, emergency financial support, and regular check-ins with staff at every level. The culture began to shift. People started greeting the security guards, thanking the cleaning crew, offering help to coworkers in need. Louis still arrived early each morning. He still took pride in a spotless floor and gleaming windows. But now, he also visited break rooms, listened to staff concerns, and connected employees who needed help with the resources to get it. And every night, when he returned to his apartment, he'd look around at the warm glow of the lamps, the photos on the wall, and the bed waiting for him, and he'd think of that moment in the conference room when everything changed. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person deciding to truly see you, for your entire life to begin again.